Every park has a story, and every story has a legacy. Welcome to Legacy Parks on the Daily Parks and Rec Show. This is our host, Richard Bienvenu, and we're live every Monday at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Together, we'll explore the history, impact, and lasting legacy of the parks that have shaped our communities for generations. We'll uncover the stories, people, and moments that make this park truly unforgettable. Legacy Parks, where every park tells a story. In this episode, we explore the history of America's parks and recreation through the story of the New Orleans Recreation Department, NORD. Discover how parks have strengthened communities, shaped generations, and continue to inspire the future of recreation across the United States.
All right. Looks good.
We are live. This is Craig LeBlanc with the Daily Parks and Rec Show. Richard Bienvenu. We're just going to call Richard a Parks and Rec historian because we are looking to actually produce historical films about our great parks throughout America. And so this is our first stab at doing this. So we're actually just going to get better live, and y'all get to see us incrementally improve. Our first, we just so happened, me and Richard just so happened to be living in, and I think one of the most beautiful park systems in America, in the city of New Orleans, Louisiana. It's got to be one of the oldest, just because New Orleans is one of the oldest cities in America. And NORD's City Park, Audubon Park, the zoo have just a rich history. So we're going to make four kind of historical films about the park system in our own backyard. And we're going to use this as our laboratory to get really good at it. Because I've already got a few cities that are very interested in us doing, they have like these legacy parks, and they want us to do something similar. I was like, all right, well, let me and Richard just get a few out the gates and get really good at this. And we got Jovi as our stage manager. Richard did a really good job of finding some old images of back in the day when NORD started and some historical figures. We also have a lot of crazy New Orleans history that's just going to be fun to cover. And then Richard wrote a great script just telling people about the history of NORDs.
Yep.
So, anything to say as we kind of launch this, Richard?
No, not at all. It was very interesting. You know, living in New Orleans, NORD is all over the place, and NORD means New Orleans Recreation Department.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess we could just, launch in and just start talking about NORD. And,
yeah. So we'll let's say the logo. Oh, let's see. Where's the logo? This is the NORD logo. Yeah. So you see this all over New Orleans on every little swing set area. Do we even know how many actual individual pocket parks are in New Orleans through NORD?
There are a lot of them. You can go on the NORD site, and there's just a ton of them.
Yeah, it's just probably 100 of them. Hundreds.
It's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, long before there was a NORD, before we had baseball leagues and summer playground programs.
Mm-hmm.
And basketball gyms. It was a simple idea, and every child deserved a safe place to play. And today that might sound obvious, but in the early 1900s, it was a revolutionary concept. Can you imagine that? To understand the story of NORD, we have to begin at the beginning, and not in 1946 when it was begun, but in 1906 when Theodore Roosevelt was the president. So back then, the automobile was a novelty. New Orleans is bustling port city filled with streetcars and horse-drawn wagons and neighborhoods overflowing with children. And at that time, there were very few organized public recreation opportunities for young people. And children played in vacant lots, on streets, and wherever they could find open space. And a civic leader, her name is Olive Stallings, believed New Orleans could do better. And we have a photo of Olive.
Oh, let's see if I can find that photo of Olive real quick. This is, let's see, I think it's this one here. Is this
there
the founder? There we go.
Olive Stallings. She became one of the city's earliest advocates for public recreation, and she helped establish New Orleans' first public playground and spent years promoting the idea that parks and playgrounds weren't luxuries, they were absolute necessities. So her vision was both simple and powerful. for her, a playground wasn't merely a place for children to burn off energy. It was a place where they could learn teamwork, develop friendships, improve their health, and become better citizens. And over the next several decades, that idea gained momentum. So New Orleans developed additional playgrounds, swimming pools, and recreation programs. And the city created the New Orleans Playground Commission to oversee many of these facilities. And by the late 30s, New Orleans already had dozens of recreation sites serving neighborhoods around the city.
Hmm.
So at the same time, a broader movement was taking place in America. Recreation was increasingly becoming recognized as an important public service. So experts were discovering what parents had long suspected. Young people who had access to organized activities were often healthier, more engaged in school, and less likely to get into trouble. Recreation wasn't simply entertainment, it was community development. Then, we had World War II that came along, and it changed America in countless ways. And it ended in 1945, and cities throughout the country faced new challenges and opportunities. So we had returning veterans, they started families, we had neighborhoods started expanding, and the baby boom was beginning, and New Orleans was no exception. So there were thousands of children that would soon need places to play, learn, and grow. And civic leaders recognized that the existing collection of playgrounds and recreation programs would not be enough to meet future demands. So the city needed a unified recreation system capable of serving every neighborhood. So there were a lot of influential New Orleanians, among them a fellow named Lester Lautenschlager, John Brechtel, G. Gernon Brown, and Morris F.X. Jeff. Together, they advocated for a citywide recreation program. And then they found an ally in LeChep's Chep Morrison. Chep Morrison was a mayor of New Orleans, and we have a picture of him actually sitting at the Resolute desk there in the Oval Office. Did you find him?
Let's see. Hold on.
Where is it?
I think it's
there. It is.
And now, who is this?
That is his name is Lesseps Morrison, but he was called Chep Morrison. So he embraced the concept and saw that recreation as a larger part of effort to modernize New Orleans and improve quality of life throughout the city was very important. So it led to a landmark moment, and on September 27, 1946, the city of New Orleans passed an ordinance 16-630 and officially created the New Orleans Recreation Department, now known and then known as NORD. So it began operations January 1st in 1947, and the name itself was straightforward, New Orleans Recreation Department. But the vision behind it was anything but ordinary. NORD wasn't created simply to run sports leagues. Its mission was to provide recreational opportunities for residents, improve public health, strengthen neighborhoods, and help young people develop physically, socially, and emotionally. And it was an ambitious goal. And what happened next was something short of remarkable. Within roughly 16 months of its creation, NORD expanded at an astonishing pace. The department built 58 new playgrounds, added 8 swimming pools, operated 91 playgrounds across the city, managed 17 pools, oversaw 8 stadiums, and sponsored 25 baseball leagues. Think about that for a moment. In less than 2 years, New Orleans had created one of the largest municipal recreation systems in America.
Wow. What was that start date?
That was January 1st, 1947.
And in 2 years, they scaled that into what you just mentioned?
In less than 2 years, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
16 months. So the growth was so impressive that people around the country began paying attention. So in 1949, Life magazine, I got a picture of a cover of Life magazine back then. I'm not sure if that's the exact issue that it came out. Can you find that?
Yeah, let's see. I think it was this one, huh? No, that was
the cover of Life magazine.
On our second take, we're going to have all this kind of nice, I think. We're just kind of, this is the beauty of figuring stuff out here.
So
that one. Well, we're getting there.
In there somewhere, the picture of old Life magazine cover.
No.
Whatever. It's in one of the other folders. It's probably in the folder. It's in the old folder.
I saw it a second ago. Anyway, go ahead. I'll find it.
Yeah. So the growth was so impressive that people started paying attention. So we had the United States Supreme Court Justice Tom C. Clark reportedly described NORD as the most progressive municipal recreation program in the nation. And that's not kind of recognition. That's not the kind of recognition normally given to a city. There it is, recreation department. New Orleans had become a national model. So, when we look at the creation of NORD in 1946, it's easy to focus on the success story. The rapid growth, new playgrounds, swimming pools, baseball leagues, et cetera, et cetera. And those accomplishments were real, but there's another side of the story, one that can't be ignored. So New Orleans in 1947 was a segregated city. Jim Crow laws shaped daily life throughout the South. Schools were segregated, public transportation was segregated, and housing patterns were heavily influenced by racial restrictions. Nearly every public institution operated under a system of separation between Black and white residents, and NORD was no exception. So from the first day it opens its doors, we had NORD operated separate facilities, one for Black people, one for white. In fact, the department maintained what was officially called a Negro division. That terminology sounds jarring today, but it reflected the language and policies of the era. So the system was based on the legal doctrine known as separate but equal, established by the United States Supreme Court in 1896. When NORD began operations in 1946, the disparities were significant. We have historical records indicate that more than 100 facilities were designed for white residents, while fewer than 20 for Black residents. So the differences weren't merely numerical. We had facilities available to white neighborhoods were often newer, larger, and better funded, while Black neighborhoods frequently received fewer resources despite serving large populations of children and families. Yet despite these inequalities, recreation became enormously important within the Black communities. So many Black African-American children growing up in New Orleans during the 40s and the 50s, their neighborhood playgrounds provided opportunities that might not have existed elsewhere. They could participate in organized sports, develop artistic talents, attend dances and community events, learn leadership skills and build friendships. And most importantly, they found places where they belonged. So many Black playground directors became highly respected community leaders. They were far more supervisors keeping an eye on children after school. And they served as mentors, teachers, role models, and community builders. And in some neighborhoods, a playground director became one of the most influential adults in a young person's life outside of family and church. So the importance of recreation within Black communities cannot be overstated. While the facilities were unequal, the commitment of the people running those programs often compensated in remarkable ways. So we had children learn to excel despite limitations. Coaches found ways to build successful teams with fewer resources. And communities rallied around their playgrounds, and neighborhood pride flourished even when funding did not. So this pattern reflected a larger reality through the Jim Crow South. We had Black communities frequently created excellence despite systemic disadvantages. That same spirit was visible throughout New Orleans recreation programs. So as the years passed, we had pressure for change began to grow across America. We had the civil rights movement started gaining momentum. And in 1954, the Supreme Court issued its landmark decision in Brown versus Board of Education, declaring school segregation unconstitutional. So New Orleans became one of the most significant battlegrounds in that struggle. The city experienced fierce conflicts over school integration during the 1960s. National news cameras descended on New Orleans. Protests had filled the streets. Families found themselves caught in political and social struggles that would reshape the city for generations. So NORD could not remain isolated from these changes. There were recreation programs existed within the same neighborhoods that were experiencing broad social transformation. And as federal civil rights legislation advanced, segregation within public recreation became increasingly difficult to justify or maintain. So the watershed moment arrived in 1964, and there's a photo here, when Congress passed the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Is that
the news article?
Of the newspaper headline? It's in there somewhere.
Let's see.
It's in. I think it's in the old photos. There. Oh, you just passed it. You see where the president signs the Civil Rights Bill.
Yeah. And what year was that?
1964.
And so we were one of those communities. Well, I guess all the communities had, Parks and Rec for Black families, and then Parks and Rec for the white families. And then, like you had kind of said in your research, that even though they were not as well funded, they still Parks and Rec directors were very important in the community and very influential in these young children's life. But then at this point, when the president signed this, now it was you weren't allowed to have segregated Parks and Rec, I guess. And so, does it say at all how New Orleans handled that rollout?
Well, because of this civil rights bill, integration was no longer optional.
Yeah.
So it was the law.
Right.
So NORD began the process of integrating its facilities and programs. And like many changes during the civil rights era, the transition was not always smooth, and some residents opposed integration. Others feared conflict or uncertainty. So we had decades of separation could not be erased overnight. Yet, compared with some of the violent confrontations that occurred elsewhere in the South, the integration of recreation facilities in New Orleans was generally less dramatic than the battles surrounding school desegregation.
Right.
And part of the reason might be because of the nature of recreation itself. Children who played together often discovered common interests. So, a baseball game doesn't care about race. A basketball court has a way of bringing people together. And so those shared experiences of sports and recreation sometimes succeeded where politics failed. But doesn't mean that integration instantly erased decades of inequality. So facilities remain uneven, neighborhoods remained divided, and economic disparities persisted. But something important had changed. Children who previously would have been separated by law could now participate in the same programs, play in the same teams, use the same facilities, and compete under the same rules. For a generation of young New Orleanians, recreation became one of the first places where a more integrated future could be experienced. So the effects gradually spread through the system, had new leadership came in, new opportunities, and NORD's identity began to change. So no longer would it operate as separate recreation systems, serving separate populations. The goal became a single recreation department serving the entire city. So it wasn't always perfectly achieved. Like New Orleans itself, NORD continued to wrestle with questions of equality, funding, and access, but the legal barriers of segregation had finally fallen. And so one of the most remarkable aspects of this story is how NORD mirrors the broader history of New Orleans. The department was born in a segregated city, grew during the height of Jim Crow era, confronted the challenges of integration during the civil rights movement, and emerged transformed by those experiences. In many ways, the history of New Orleans is a history of NORD. It's a story of division and resilience, of injustices and progress, and of communities finding ways to thrive even under difficult circumstances. So today, when children gather at a recreation center, they join a basketball league or play baseball at a neighborhood playground, they rarely think about that history. They simply show up to play. But the ability to do so alongside neighbors from every background was hard-won. It reflects decades of social change, legal battles, community leadership, and perseverance. And understanding that history doesn't diminish NORD's accomplishment. It strengthens them. Because the true story isn't that NORD is perfect or was perfect. It evolved like New Orleans itself. It adapted, changed, struggled, and ultimately became more inclusive than the system that existed when it began. And, as we'll see, and the next thing we're talking about, regardless of race, background, or neighborhood, one thing united generations of New Orleanians: the playground. For countless children growing up in the city, the neighborhood recreation center wasn't just a place to play. It was the center of community life. So if you ask almost any lifelong New Orleanian about NORD, chances are they won't start by talking about city government. They won't mention ordinances, budgets, etc. They'll remember a coach who changed their life. So we have the summer baseball team, basketball game, overtime, swimming lesson, talent show, et cetera, And because for generations of New Orleanians, NORD wasn't simply a recreation department, it was childhood. To understand why NORD became so deeply woven into the fabric of New Orleans, you have to understand the city itself. New Orleans has always been a city of neighborhoods, and people identify strongly with where they grew up. We have the Irish Channel, we got Gentilly, we got the 7th Ward, the 9th Ward, pronounced a lot of times by people who live there, the lower 9th Ward,
Yeah.
Lakeview, Lakeview, Broadmoor, Algiers, Mid-City, New Orleans East, and Uptown. And Craig and I live in Uptown. And all developed their own personalities, traditions, and sense of community. Many of those neighborhoods, the recreation center became the gathering place that held everything together. So before we had the smartphones and the social media and the streaming services and all these things that we deal with today, during the summer, many with the playground, many practically lived at the playgrounds. So for working families, NORD was invaluable. Parents who worked long hours knew their children had a safe place to play. They knew the supervisors were present, activities were organized, and children could spend their times with their friends rather than sitting at home with nothing to do. So the neighborhood playground became an extension of home. So one of NORD's great strengths was its summer playground program. And for thousands of children, summer vacation meant reporting to the playground almost every morning. So a typical day might begin with organized games, followed by arts and crafts, softball, basketball, races, contests, music programs, or special events. And so many playgrounds organized field trips. Others had talent shows, dances, neighborhood celebrations. Some even blended recreation with educational activities. And the goal wasn't simply to keep children occupied, it was to create an environment where they could grow. So children learned cooperation, leadership, sportsmanship, responsibility, and they often learned that those lessons, without realizing it, became because they were having too much fun. So one of the remarkable things about NORD is that many people's favorite memories had nothing to do with sports. When outsiders think about recreation departments, they often think about baseball diamonds and basketball courts, et cetera, et cetera. But NORD was about much more than athletics. It had arts and crafts program, music, dance, holiday celebration, community events, talent competitions. And for some people, their first public performance happened at a recreation center. For others, it was their first opportunity to discover an artistic talent or develop leadership skills. So the recreation center served as a community center in the truest sense of the word. It brought people together, and because New Orleans is a city built on relationships, that mattered. So parents met other parents, children made lifelong friends, and neighbors got to know one another. Communities grew stronger. And many older New Orleanians can still name the exact playground where they spent their childhood, not simply the neighborhood, but the specific playground. People didn't say they were from Gentilly. They would say, I grew up on Stallings Playground. Others probably would say Gurnon Brown Playground or the Hardin Playground or Cutoff Playground or Rosenwald Recreation Center. The playground became part of their identity. So, we also have neighborhood rivalries began to develop naturally. So when you got different teams competing against each other, the games mean something. You got the bragging rights were at stake. Children represented not only themselves, but their entire neighborhood. And winning mattered. But belonging mattered even more. We had volunteer coaches became local legends. Some coached for decades and received little recognition beyond the appreciation of the families they served. Yet their influence was enormous. We have a volunteer coach might impact hundreds of young lives over the course of a career. They taught sports, certainly, but also they taught discipline, respect, persistence, accountability, and those lessons extended far beyond the playing field. So you ask successful adults about their childhood mentors, and many will point to a coach, a recreation leader, or playground supervisor. NORD provided thousands of those mentors over the years. So the timing of NORD's rise also contributed to its success. So during the 50s and 60s and 70s, New Orleans neighborhoods were filled with children. The baby boom generation created enormous demand for recreation, and playgrounds were often bustling from morning until night. Fields were crowded, gyms were active, community centers buzzed with activity. In many neighborhoods, the playground was one of the most vibrant places in the community. Children from different schools came together here, and friendships crossed classroom boundaries. Recreation center became a common meeting place where entire neighborhoods gathered. And for some kids, it was also a refuge. Not every home situation was ideal or stable, and not every neighborhood was easy. The playground offered stability, a place where expectations were clear, where adults cared, and where achievement was recognized. And for many young people, those things made a tremendous difference. Perhaps that's why nostalgia for NORD remains so strong today. People aren't simply remembering games, they're remembering a time when neighborhoods felt connected, when children knew one another, when adults knew the kids on the block, and when communities gathered in shared spaces. Of course, no memory is perfect. Every generation tends to view its childhood through a slightly sentimental lens, but when thousands of people from different neighborhoods tell similar stories, it's worth paying attention. And again, New Orleans described NORD as one of the New Orleanians describe NORD as one of the defining experiences of growing up in the city. Not because it was flashy or expensive, but because it brought people together. And ultimately, that's what recreation does its best. It creates community. Baseball field becomes a gathering place. A baseball court becomes a social center. A playground becomes a neighborhood institution. The games matter, the activities matter, but the relationships matter most. So, those relationships helped shape generations of New Orleanians and created bonds that lasted long after childhood ended. They're part of the reason NORD occupies such a special place in the city's collective memory. So next, we're going to talk about different athletes and coaches and leaders of NORD. And, there are a lot of famous people that came out of NORD. So, every city loves to claim their successful athletes. Every town points to a hometown hero. And what makes the NORD story remarkable is it not that it produced a few stars, it produced so many. For decades, New Orleans recreation centers and playgrounds served as an unofficial training ground for future athletes, musicians. That's a picture of Branford Marsalis right there, who's the son of Ellis Marsalis and the brother of Wynton Marsalis, the famous trumpeter. So, it produced civic leaders, business owners, educators, and professionals. And long before college recruiters arrived, before television cameras appeared, and before professional contracts were signed, these future success stories were simply kids at the playground. They played ball after school, they learned from volunteer coaches, they competed against neighboring neighborhoods, and they developed skills that would carry them far into the future. So to understand that success, we first have to understand the scale of NORD's athletics. At its peak, NORD operated one of the largest municipal sports programs in America. So get that. Here in this little city of New Orleans, we had one of the largest municipal sports programs in the country. Thousands upon thousands of young people participated every year in organized activities that spread across hundreds of fields, courts, and recreation centers. We had baseball leagues that filled playground diamonds throughout the city, basketball games packed neighborhood gyms, football teams represented recreation centers from nearly every corner of New Orleans, and the opportunities seemed endless. Perhaps most importantly, participation wasn't limited to families with money. That may have been one of the NORD's greatest contributions. So talent could emerge from anywhere. A child didn't need expensive equipment, private coaching, or country club memberships. They simply needed a chance to participate, and NORD provided that chance. Baseball was among the earliest and most important popular sports in the system. New Orleans has always enjoyed a deep baseball tradition, and NORD embraced the game from the beginning. Children learned fundamentals on neighborhood diamonds and competed against teams from other playgrounds throughout the city. And for countless young players, NORD baseball was their first organized athletic experience. The leagues taught teamwork, commitment, discipline, perseverance, and players learned how to win gracefully and lose with dignity, lessons that remained valuable long after the final game ended. Baseball became equally important. In many neighborhoods, the local gym basketball became equally important. So in neighborhoods, the local gym served as a center of activity. We had young players that spent countless hours developing their skills, often arriving before practice and staying long after games had ended. So the basketball court became a classroom where persistence and hard work were rewarded. Children learned that improvement rarely came overnight, and success required effort, repetition, and determination. Football brought another dimension to the recreation system. Youth football programs generated tremendous neighborhood pride. Children dreamed of following local high school stars and eventually playing on larger stages. So the recreation fields became proving grounds where young athletes learned the basics of the game and discovered what they were capable of achieving. So some of these athletes became household names. The most famous example is Marshall Falk. Can you find Marshall Falk in there
Yeah, let me see if I can find him. Let's see. Nope, not that one. This one, I think.
No, that's Moon Landrieu, one of our mayors.
The one
It would be in the file of people, the people file. A people folder, I should say. Well, why are you feeling it? Why are you trying to find it?
Well, I'm trying to find it.
While you're trying to find it, I'll continue.
Here we go.
You don't see it? No, that's Branford Marsalis.
Is it?
I think that was it.
This one?
No, I'm sorry. No, the running back, the football player. There. So he became an NFL superstar. He's a Hall of Fame running back and one of the most dynamic offensive players in professional football history. And he was a young New Orleans kid who participated in our NORD programs. And like many stars, his development began with opportunities close to home. So NORD didn't make him a Hall of Famer. His talent, his work ethic, and determination accomplished that. But it helped provide the environment where those qualities could emerge. It gave him a place to compete, a place to learn, and a place to grow. So his story illustrates something important about recreation. You never know which child on the field may someday achieve greatness. Every future star begins as an unknown kid wearing a neighborhood uniform. Then we had another legendary name connected with New Orleans recreation is Rusty Staub. That is the baseball player you just passed up. No, go back. That's Rusty Staub, yeah. Before becoming a Major League Baseball star and one of the most beloved figures in professional baseball, he was another young athlete benefiting from the city's recreational opportunities. And his success reflected the strength of the youth baseball program throughout New Orleans and demonstrated how local playground leaders could serve as a first step toward extraordinary achievement. Then we have Linda Tuero. That is the woman playing tennis player in there. There she is. Actually, my sister-in-law's sister used to play tennis with her. And to demonstrate that NORD's influence extended well beyond the traditional team sports, she became one of the nation's top tennis players and rose to international prominence during the 1970s. At that time, women's sports often received less attention than they do today, so her accomplishments inspired countless young athletes. And she remains one of the most accomplished competitors ever to emerge from New Orleans recreational programs. But it's not only about sports. We also have fascinating examples of NORD's broader influence involving Branford Marsalis. We had him up there. Branford Marsalis, who I said earlier is Ellis Marsalis, the really famous local pianist and the brother of what's the guy? The trumpet player, Wynton Marsalis. Wynton Marsalis has won tons of awards, and he's recognized as a fabulous concert, classical trumpeter, as well as jazz.
Yeah, and I think you can still hear them live every now and then at Snuggs Harbor on Frenchman Street. That's where I saw Ellis before he passed.
Yeah, I saw Ellis there once too. So he's recognized worldwide as one of America's greatest jazz musicians. And when people think of him, they think of music, not recreation. So, youth included participating in his youth included participating in organized programs that exposed him to mentorship, structured discipline, and community engagement. So that's such an important thing, when it comes to playing music or anything like that. It has to do with your commitment. It has to do with your stick to it and drive and your discipline. And NORD definitely attempts and is very successful at teaching kids how to do that, how to build that in yourself. So, some of the playgrounds that produce football stars also help nurture musicians, artists, entrepreneurs, teachers, and community leaders. Then we had Wesley Barrow. Now, Wesley Barrow, if you ask people about New Orleanians, about influential figures in recreation history, his name inevitably comes up. Barrow was far more than a coach or administrator. He became one of the most respected youth mentors in New Orleans history. And for decades, he dedicated himself to helping young people succeed both on the field and off the field. And so children who played under his guidance often speak about lessons that had little to do with sports. They remember character, responsibility, respect, leadership, and accountability. And those lessons shaped the way they approach school, work, family, and community life. And so his impact is so significant that one of New Orleans' most important athletic facilities now bears his name, Wesley Barrow Stadium. And I think we have a picture of the Wesley Barrow Stadium in there somewhere in one of I think it's in the new the new folder.
This is our before picture.
Yeah, exactly.
We're gonna get better.
So the Wesley Barrow Stadium. Just look for it. I think it's in the new pics. So it's having a stadium named after yourself is reflects something larger than athletic achievement. It recognizes a lifetime devoted to serving young people and strengthening communities. So, for every Marshall Falk and Linda Torero, there were countless young people who never appeared in national headlines, yet many of them became successful in their own ways. You got teachers, police officers, business owners, nurses, firefighters, etc. That's one of the reasons that recreation experts often argue that sports are never really about sports. They're about development. The scoreboard matters, yes, but championships matters, yes, and winning matters. But the ultimate goal is helping young people become capable, confident adults. And NORD achieved that goal generation after generation. So when we celebrate the famous alumni that passed through NORD programs, we're really celebrating something larger. We're celebrating a system that we gave a system that's the Wesley Barrow Stadium. We're celebrating a system that gave children opportunities and believed that potential existed in every neighborhood. It understood that greatness can emerge from the most ordinary places. Sometimes greatness begins in packed stadiums, sometimes on a national stage, but more importantly, it actually probably begins in a neighborhood playground. Kids pick up a bat and throw a football and step onto a basketball court, et cetera. And that's just an opportunity, that can actually change their lives. And that's the legacy of NORD athletics, but not simply the stars it produced, but the generations it inspired. Now, what happened in 2005 that completely turned New Orleans on its head? That's Katrina. By the summer of 2005, NORD had been part of the New Orleans life for nearly 60 years. Generations of residents had grown up in its playgrounds, played in its leagues, had summer programs, had memories, and then came Hurricane Katrina. So no event in modern New Orleans history has had a greater impact on the city as this hurricane. Entire neighborhoods were flooded. Hundreds of thousands of residents were displaced. Schools, businesses, churches, public facilities suffered catastrophic damage, and NORD was no exception. The storm and the flooding that followed devastated the recreation system. Facilities throughout the city were damaged, and many suffered extensive destruction. Playgrounds sat underwater. Recreation centers became unusable, and athletic fields were covered in debris and mud. And in some neighborhoods, the damage was overwhelming. We had buildings that had served generations of children suddenly stood empty and damaged, and equipment was destroyed. Records were lost, and programs that had operated continuously for decades came to an abrupt halt. So not only was the destruction physical, but was also emotional. Any New Orleanians who lived through that knows what I'm talking about. So, recreation centers represented stability and community, and they were places associated with childhood memories, neighborhood identity, and family traditions. Seeing those facilities damaged or abandoned became another painful reminder of everything the city had lost. The timing made the challenge even greater. Hundreds of thousands of residents had evacuated. Families were scattered across the country, and many neighborhoods weren't sure if they would ever come back. So schools struggled to reopen, businesses faced enormous uncertainty, and local institutions fought just simply to survive. So under those circumstances, recreation really became a secondary concern. And in reality, it was really more important than ever. So as people slowly returned to the city, rebuilding community, life, et cetera, neighborhoods needed signs that normal life could eventually return. So recreation helped provide those signs. And, but rebuilding the system would not be easy. Even before Katrina, NORD faced challenges, even funding, aging facilities, administrative issues, et cetera. And as recovery efforts continued, city leaders began asking the important question, do we need to fix this recreation system? But maybe it needs reinvention. So the discussion eventually led to one of the most significant changes in NORD's history, the creation of NORD Commission. So established in 2010, the NORD Commission was designed to provide a new structure for recreation services in New Orleans. And the goal was to improve accountability, strengthen management, increase community involvement, and create a modern recreation system capable of serving a changing city. So the transition represented the most significant organizational change since NORD was originally created in 1946. Under this new model, the commission would oversee recreation programs while continuing to rebuild and modernize facilities throughout the city. So it partnered with community organizations, schools, nonprofits, and other agencies became increasingly important. So the emphasis shifted toward creating a recreation system that reflected the realities of post-Katrina New Orleans. So many improvements followed. Facilities were renovated and rebuilt. New programs were introduced. Technology became more integrated into daily operations, and greater attention was given to community input, strategic planning, and long-term sustainability. The city also began investing in facilities that looked different from those of earlier generations. While traditional baseball fields and basketball courts remain important, modern recreation increasingly included fitness programs, after-school enrichment, senior activities, wellness initiatives, and a broader range of community services. The needs of residents had changed, and NORD adapted accordingly. That adaptability may be one of the organization's greatest strengths. Throughout its history, NORD has repeatedly evolved to meet changing circumstances. So we had World War II, adapted to integration during the Civil Rights Movement, and after Katrina, adapted once again. The challenges, however, did not disappear. So maintaining facilities remain expensive. Recreation departments across America compete with many other public priorities for funding, and participation patterns continue to evolve. And today's children have far more entertainment options than previous generations. So keeping young people engaged requires constant innovation. So yet, despite those challenges, the core mission remains remarkably similar to the vision established in 1946, providing opportunities, strengthening communities, serving young people, and creating places where residents can gather, learn, and grow. And those goals mattered before Katrina, but they mattered more during recovery, and they matter today. So looking back, it's remarkable that NORD survived one of the greatest urban disasters in American history. Many organizations never recover from disruptions of that magnitude, yet NORD endured because the need it serves never disappeared. The children still needed places to play, families still needed places to gather, neighborhoods still needed places that belonged to everyone. In many ways, the story of NORD's recovery mirrors the story of New Orleans itself. The city was damaged but not defeated. It suffered tremendous losses, yet found ways to rebuild. It changed, adapted, and moved forward while preserving connections to its past. The resilience is woven into the history of New Orleans, and it's woven into the history of NORD. As we move, along with our story, with what's happening to the city of New Orleans, and the great things that are happening in our city now with that we have a new mayor. NORD is just, I think, one of the stories that's going to get better and better. So why does NORD matter? NORD matters because children matter, because communities matter. So, the baseball leagues, the basketball tournaments, the swimming lessons, summer camps, and playground activities were all tools for achieving something larger. They help create relationships, build confidence, develop leadership, and strengthen neighborhoods. And those outcomes matter long after the final score has been forgotten. When historians look back on NORD's greatest achievement, it probably won't be a particular championship team or a specific facility. It'll be the countless lives touched over nearly 80 years of service. It will be the child who gained confidence through recreation, the coach who became a mentor, the family that found community, and the neighborhood that grew stronger because people gathered together. Those stories represent a true measure of success. And perhaps that brings us to the most important question of all. If we had to tell the story of New Orleans through the history of NORD, what would that be? It'd be a story of neighborhoods, resilience, people investing in one another. It'd be a story of children finding opportunities, communities overcoming challenges, and generations coming together in shared spaces. Because in the end, NORD is not really about playgrounds. It's about swimming pools or baseball fields or recreation centers. Those are simply the settings where the story unfolds. The real story is about people. It's about the millions of moments that occurred on those playgrounds and ball fields, the relationships that were formed, the lessons that were learned, and the communities that were strengthened. Those experiences became part of the fabric of New Orleans and helped shape the city we know today. That is why NORD matters, not just to New Orleans, but to anyone who believes strong communities are built one neighborhood, one family, and one child at a time. For nearly 80 years, that has been the mission of NORD, and his story is far from over.
Fantastic, man. That was fantastic. All right. So what can we do to improve? I was thinking we should do this again next Monday and maybe about double the amount of pictures we have, and then kind of time them alongside of the script so that we know we want to play this image when he's reading this image when he's reading this. Maybe if you could even send Jovi your script, and then when you're talking about like the civil rights movement and the segregation, she can be rolling through pictures that show that. When you're talking about, there was a part where you started talking about the playground. I know we can find a lot of images about with the playground and the moms and the swings and all that kind of kids and stuff. And then the same thing with the sports, as you're talking about the athletes, we can make sure to have, the athlete that you're talking about. And we could probably have 3 or 4 images of that one athlete because they're so famous. Same thing with the musicians and stuff.
Yeah. They're on the NORD site, they do have pictures of the playgrounds, but I tell you what, they're uninteresting.
Yeah.
Need to take a better picture of this.
Yeah, I'm sure we can find some stuff online. Just people taking pictures of their parks and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, then there's also a lot of good, like you can look at the track club, or God, there's so many different websites of organizations that operate on the on park property. Especially around City Park. Now, City Park is different than NORD's, correct?
Yeah. So, the plan is to actually do one on City Park,
One on City Park,
and one on Audubon Park. I mean, they can overlap, but
yeah. Well, we could definitely. I mean, NORD's has such a great history. It's like I can't wait to do take 2 of this one, just so that we can get the photos kind of lined up with your speech. And so why don't we do this? Can you
now, let me ask you, was this long enough? Because I actually cut out the second to last segment because I thought it was getting too long.
No, we're at the 48-minute mark. So if we wanted to kind of hold ourselves to the 1 hour, we could do one of 2 things. We can have, I think what we'll do is have like a 2 or 3 minute commercial of you, maybe you and me speaking about what's the purpose of the History Channel, like the Parks Historical Channel. So that'll buy us like 3 minutes. And then maybe we can, towards the end, kind of close it out with, thanking everybody, or maybe having some general message about the value of historical parks. So we can maybe create some 2-3 minute bookends. And then if we don't want to interrupt the show and just have one continuous play, then we would have roughly about 44, 43 minutes in the middle.
I wouldn't mind that we interrupt in the middle of it just to give myself a break.
Sure.
You know?
Well, I think what we can do is as we produce a standalone piece of content that we deliver to the Parks Department, we can edit out any middle promotions.
Right. Yeah.
So we normally run on all of our other shows for the Daily Parks and Rec show. We usually have 6 promo spots. We do 2 in the middle, 2 in the front, 2 in the middle, 2 in the end. And then all of our show hosts have an opening monologue. So usually the opening monologue is like 5 minutes. So by the time you play 6 promos, front, middle, end, and the opening monologue, you really only got about 40, maybe 40 minutes to talk, which you had plenty enough time for that.
Right. Yeah, and I can do an opening monologue as well.
Yeah.
Just launching right into it.
Yeah, so maybe between now and next Monday, if you could design an opening monologue for just at least version 1, obviously your opening monologue is going to get better and better with time. But if you could have an opening monologue for Historical Parks of America show every Monday, 3 p.m. Eastern time, where we highlight the Historical Parks of America, something like that. And then today's show, we're going to be recovering and then kind of go into what we're doing. And then you can also have thanking DPRS Media Network. We're a member of a family of shows, all producing content for the Parks and Rec industry of America, raising awareness around the great work that Parks and Rec does for its community. We do something like that. I say, then, well, let's go ahead and give a big shout out to today's sponsor of the show, and then Jovi can play a promo there. And then we can, matter of fact, while we're doing that, since we're still live. All right, everybody, this is our latest show promo. So Dave Ramirez does a show. Jovi, if you want to cue that one up, Dave Ramirez does a show right before this show. So twice a month, he's going to be the show right before you, Richard. So on the 2nd and 4th Monday of every month at 1:30 p.m. Eastern time, the Smart Parks Forward show airs. It's a 1-hour show talking about hardware and technology, and Dave does an amazing job on that. Immediately following his show is your show, and so you'll need to give him maybe a paragraph. Say, Dave, can you say this about my show? Stay tuned. Here's what's coming up next. So if you could hand that to him, he'll just go ahead and read it. And that way he's kind of getting his audience to stay tuned for your show. But Joey, why don't you go ahead and run that promo for Dave's show, just because this is like the second time it's ever been played on air, and we'll come right back and finish up the show here with Richard.
The future of parks and recreation isn't coming, it's already here. Across communities everywhere, technology is transforming how parks connect, engage, and serve the people who rely on them. From smart amenities and connected infrastructure to real-time data and innovative solutions, a new generation of parks is taking shape. Welcome to Smart Parks Forward, presented by DPRS Media Network and co-produced by Outdoor Link. Each episode brings you the leaders, innovators, and visionaries driving the future of parks and recreation. Discover groundbreaking ideas, real-world success stories, and the technologies helping agencies create safer, smarter, and more connected communities. Because great parks don't just improve spaces, they improve lives. The future is connected. The future is intelligent. The future is now. This is Smart Parks Forward.
Yeah, so we can have a couple of those. So that's actually promoting a show. So the Smart Parks Forward is a show in the DPRS Media Network. But then we also have show sponsors like Outdoor Link. And so let's go ahead and play the Outdoor Link promo as a sample of one of the places that we can fit inside of your history channel.
In today's parks and recreation industry, communication, safety, and efficiency go hand in hand. That's where Outdoor Link comes in, delivering smart technology that empowers city departments and community planners to do more, smarter. Outdoor Link's platform connects and automates everything that keeps your parks running smoothly. From lighting and locks to signage, water features, Wi-Fi, and digital advertising. Control and schedule park lights for safety and energy savings. Remotely manage facility access. Coordinate fountains and splash pads. Provide public connectivity. All from one simple, unified platform, giving you real-time control, data, and cost efficiency. For parks and recreation agencies, that means safer spaces, smarter resource use, faster responses, and stronger community engagement. And behind every great park story is great infrastructure. That's why Outdoor Link proudly supports DPRS Media Company, helping the Daily Parks and Rec Show amplify the voices of professionals shaping our communities every day. Outdoor Link, smart, connected solutions for parks, recreation, and beyond.
All right, so maybe by next week, here's some homework for us to do. Richard, if you could send Jovi your entire script, and then also if you'd like to add to it or mess with it a little bit, you can kind of edit it and then send it to her. And then she can put...
I was actually editing it while I was reading it. I was jumping over sections and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So maybe put it in the order that you feel like after take one, makes better sense after having our first one under our belts. And then she can go maybe put the images that make sense according to the words. And Jovi, if you could just put it minute by minute. So if we've got a 60-minute time clock, on minute 1, it's just welcome to the show. Maybe Richard welcomes everybody for 60 seconds for minute 1. Minute 2 through 4, he describes the mission vision of the show, thinking, and then maybe the next couple minutes might be just telling a little bit about DPRS Media Network and how we are a family of shows. Then maybe from there, Jovi, you can go to the transition video and then play maybe pick one of the sponsors of the show. So that way Richard could thank today's sponsor for the show. And let's just put Outdoor Link as the primary sponsor. So then he'll have like the welcome, the opening monologue, the description of the DPRS media. Then he'll go into today's sponsor is Outdoor Link. And then you can play transition, Outdoor Link. I think that'll probably buy you to almost the 10-minute mark, maybe 9-minute mark. Then he can start reading and you can start flipping through the images all the way until the halfway point, at which point we'll take a short commercial break to talk about the upcoming show tomorrow. So that can be look.
It's because I'm on here. Your dog sees me and is barking at me.
Sorry.
Like every time I come there.
Perfect timing. We just wanted everyone to know this is a live performance. So yeah, so then once you get to the halfway point, Richard, Jovi, maybe provide an ad read for Amelia. I think we have I don't know if we have an Amelia commercial, but we do have one for the Parks and Tech Collective. And so usually if you play 2 promos, Richard, you'll say something about the 2 promos you're getting ready to play. And so when you probably get around the 28-minute mark, just say, and I'd like to thank today's sponsor and also talk about a couple of the other shows that we produce. And then you can ask Jovi to play those 2 promos. That'll get you maybe to the 34-ish minute mark, at which point you can finish off the back half of your show. And probably with about 2 or 3 minutes to spare, you can kind of close out and maybe talk about other projects you have coming up or something like that.
Okay.
That sound like a plan?
Sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, guys, thank y'all so much for attending. I know we had some watchers today. This is how we started the Daily Parks and Rec Show, literally designing it live. So I love this. This is so much better. We didn't have StreamYard or Jovi or any of the other stuff back then, or logos or nothing. So this is way better. Stay tuned. Next week, we're going to do a take 2 on NORDs and see if we can improve upon today's performance. And following that, we'll probably do something similar for City Park and for Audubon Park and maybe for Audubon Zoo.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that would be something really cool. We could probably do something on the aquarium and the maybe the World War II museum. Those are two phenomenal museums. I think the World War II museum got a big award, one of the best museums in the country.
Well, it's the most popular museum in the city. It's the most popular thing to see in New Orleans right
Yeah.
now. It's number
Yeah,
one.
absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, well, guys, thank you all for tuning in. Stay tuned next week. We will be here with another episode of version 2 of the History Channel, and I promise we're even going to come up with an official title and a logo for this show.
Yeah, y'all presented like 3 different titles, and I like every one of them. So
yeah, I know. Maybe we'll put it out on social media and have everybody
which
vote.
one do you like better? So I like them all.
Yeah,
Let's switch them up on each
Yeah.
show.
Fantastic. All right, Richard. Well, let's do this again next week, and you'll have a great rest of your week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks
Love
so
you
much.
all.
They say it's just rec. Just rec, where kids learn to try again. Just rec, where confidence begins. Where teamwork, effort, and fun matter more than trophies. It's not about perfection. It's about participation. It's not just rec. It's where kids learn to love the game and themselves. It's just rec until they learn teamwork for life. It's just rec, but it's everything to them. It's more than rec. It's a movement. It's just rec until you realize it's shaping the next generation. Together, we're not just running programs. We're building a culture of confidence, connection, and community. Join us.
In the parks and recreation industry, attention is limited, but influence is everything. Every day, thousands of parks and recreation professionals make critical decisions. Decisions on infrastructure, programs, technology, and vendors. The question is your brand part of that conversation? DPRS Media Network was built to answer that question. We are a dedicated media ecosystem focused exclusively on the parks and recreation industry in the United States. Through a network of daily and weekly shows, we inform, connect, and influence this audience. Our distribution spans multiple platforms: LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, X, Instagram, plus email campaigns, newsletters, podcasts, and live event coverage. This is not a single-channel strategy. It is a multi-platform media engine. Today, our network reaches over 214,000 connections, including 51,000 on LinkedIn, 64,000 on Facebook, nearly 40,000 email subscribers, and thousands more across podcast and social platforms. While some audiences overlap, our true value is not just reach, it is relevance. We speak directly to parks and recreation directors, program managers, and industry leaders, an audience that is highly targeted and actively engaged. Through DPRS Media Network, your brand integrates seamlessly into this ecosystem. Through sponsored show segments, targeted advertisement placements, podcast features, and host-read promotions, even custom branded content. Not as interruptions, but as part of the conversation. And we don't just operate online. We attend over 15 major parks and recreation conventions each year, reaching more than 24,000 professionals in person. Through live shows, interviews, and on-site media coverage, we position our partners at the center of the industry. Every piece of content we produce is amplified across our entire network. Multiple shows, multiple hosts, multiple platforms. Your message doesn't appear once, it multiplies. This is more than advertising. It is strategic positioning within a trusted media network built specifically for the parks and recreation industry. If your goal is to reach decision makers, build credibility, and stay top of mind, then it's time to partner with DPRS Media Network. Apply for partnership or sponsorship today. Let's position your brand where the industry is already paying attention.